Hello and welcome to Helluva Podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Audie, the O is silent, bitch.
And today we're talking about the rest of Truth Seekers fucking finally.
Fucking finally.
We are so back.
We are so back. We started Truth Seekers last spring, end of spring, and then we did part 2 over the summer, thinking that would be the last part, but then it wasn't, because we talked for 2 hours and we still weren't done. And then we were on hiatus.
Yeah.
For good reason.
And then we were on hiatus because we've both been so ill.
Yeah. Several times.
Yeah.
Just, giving it back and forth.
Yeah, virus kind of stuff. Stuff going around at college. And then also just schoolwork and fieldwork and all that shit kicking our ass.
Yeah, just so much going on.
Yeah, we, at our school, sophomore year is, the first term of sophomore year is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Because we have to make our plan essays, we have to... I'm trying not to talk very Bennington-like because it's a general audience.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of extra assignments that you normally don't have in college in addition to our regular classes, and so we've just been slammed.
Yeah.
And we've been sick.
I mean, for a lot of, more traditional colleges, in, sophomore year is when you have to declare your major.
That's
so,
true.
We're not unique in that sense, but it has been, kicking our asses, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, but we are so back.
We are so back.
We recently we spent fucking forever doing a rewatch of the entire series, taking new notes, revising old notes.
Because the new 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So much new content has come out, that has, changed the way we were thinking about previous episodes, and we were just so, behind in terms of note-taking and stuff like that, so we had to go back and do it all over.
We should also probably note that in our last episode, our whole interpretation of Fizz in the bad trip sequence is probably... could be differently interpreted now.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually went through and, listened to our... Oh, we should have done that. But,
yeah.
But...
I guess just, a general acknowledgement that, not just about Fizz, but, anything in general.
Yeah.
This is the first episode we're doing... I believe the last time we recorded, the most recent episode that was out was Western Energy.
It might have been Happy Campers.
Might have been Happy Campers.
But we
true.
didn't... Nothing related in Happy Campers.
Yeah. So, every episode before now, anything that you heard that is, inconsistent with what is now canon, that's why.
Yeah, we had so many comments being on, I think we had a Q&A that was something about how Blitz got his scars.
Yeah.
And so many people being the fire. And it's well, yes, but that was recorded so long ago.
Yes. And we'll get to that when we get to that. But today, we gotta talk about Truth Seekers.
Yes.
The rest of it, and maybe, if it comes up, revise a bit of what we said in the previous episodes.
Yeah.
But just, understand that we try to make it clear that, we're only speaking based off the episodes that are currently out at any given moment. And since the show is not finished, we are just going to be consistently proven wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And proven right.
But that's kind of the fun in it. We love, reforming and stuff.
Yes.
And also, we are so open to, criticism and, different views on our points. So, we are not the kind of people that's, what we say is God.
Yeah.
Challenge us.
Yes.
We love that shit. We love reformatting and reformulating and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
But, yeah, the main goal of this episode is to get through this fucking Helluva episode, Truth Seekers.
Yes.
It needs to be done.
It's been so long. It has been 84 years. So yeah, where we left off, we just finished going through the bad trip sequence, and now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yes.
And
also, we should know that one of the biggest things we noted in our rewatch is all of the animation budget for this episode went to the bad trip sequence.
Yes,
it was so smooth.
The animation especially gets a lot better in season 2. That's just a general improvement that we noticed, but in this episode specifically, the animation in the bad trip sequence versus the rest of the episode, and, also Stolas's part at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
But
it's so smooth and clean and,
so
bright.
Smooth. Yes.
Yeah, we were watching it, we were whoa.
Whoa.
A little disorienting. But, yeah, mainly noting the animation is cool as fuck.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about, the fight sequence and stuff. There's some... For this being earlier and having, more choppy animation, some of the sequences are really fucking cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially, Moxie's bad trip sequence. So,
yeah.
It's so smooth. It's like fucking butter.
Butter on freaking toast.
Butter on freaking toast. But yeah, so kicking it off with the Moxie and Blitz conversation after the bad trip.
Yeah.
Which
such a place to start.
Such a place to start. Makes me fucking crazy. Yeah, do you have anything to...
Well, the first note we have is when Blitz says, "I'm hard on you because I know what you're capable of, Mox," which is just makes me fucking crazy.
Yeah. And it really puts a lot of their dynamic into perspective.
Yeah, it really does. We have a lot of notes on, like, their fucking trauma and how it relates to this. Because obviously we know, like, Moxie's dad is shitty.
Yes.
And, like, do we think... Like, there is the part of Crimson probably wasn't like this because he is so shitty. He probably was just more, like, outright shitty.
Outright, you suck.
Yeah, but, like, was this a tactic of manipulation that he used? And, like, how does that frame how Moxie perceives it and all of that?
Yeah.
That's, like, our first little bullet.
Not in a way that we're, like, comparing Blitz to Crimson.
Oh, yeah, absolutely
just, like,
not.
how Moxie perceives authority figures because of how he perceives his father and how his father treated him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And in a similar vein, does that still apply? The note about Fizz that we have? Because these notes that we're working off of, by the way, these notes are from months ago.
We did just read through them and didn't fix anything. We were
we were just like, wow, this is so different. And then we didn't change it.
Yeah.
But
I think here, so how I perceive the note here, which I don't think is what I think I wrote this, I don't think is what I meant originally, but how I perceived it was Fizz experiencing the thing, so that's why I didn't change it. But yeah, no, I think that doesn't apply anymore. But the thing about Blitz's dad still definitely.
Oh yeah, like Blitz having the same treatment from his father.
Yeah.
Of the, like, I mean, his dad was also the type to be outright, like, you suck, be better, you're horrible. But I think, especially in his case where he was, like, a performer, that mindset of, like, hey, come on, I know what you're capable of, so, like, fucking do it, you piece of shit. Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would explain why Blitz, it treats Moxie and others, like, in, you know, with that mindset.
Yeah, in a, like, tough love kind of way.
Yes, yeah. It's the, like, manipulative, abusive father to tough love pipeline.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't think this is why Fizz is here in the bad trip sequence, but I think there is something to the vein of having Fizz there, not in the way we originally intended, but he is in an old cartoon style, and therefore representing the past, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I feel he still could be, like, giving that message to Blitz, like, Fizz reminds him of that because they were treated like that together.
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
thing.
Yeah. Especially Fizz being treated that way makes sense because, I think it, like, Fizz being the, like, quote-unquote superior performer and, like, the one who's, like, expected to be perfect, as, you know, we'll get into that whole thing with Memon's musical, whatever the fuck.
Memon's musical special or whatever.
Yeah, but I think, like, we'll talk about this more then, but, like, the idea of, Blitz's dad, like, mostly, like, praising Fizz and being like, yes, you're, like, the son I never... like, the better son.
Yeah,
and,
the
like,
son I never had. Has his son right there.
Yeah.
Son in earshot.
Son in earshot. And he's like, yeah, you're so talented, you're perfect. But then, like, in the instances where Fizz, like, does fuck up in some way, even in the tiniest way, it's like, oh, hey, you're better than this. Do better. Don't be shitty. And probably comparing him to Blitz.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you want to be like Blitz?
Yeah. Now that we know more about Fizz, and we're, like, hashtag Fizz fans.
I love Fizz. Fizz, I have such an intense emotional attachment to Fizz.
Yes.
Which listeners know that is such a shift.
Yes.
Because I really thought Fizz was, like, an abuser and shit. And now that I'm realizing he's just like me for real.
Yeah. See, I was, I think, always more on the side of, like, they definitely had a toxic relationship of sorts growing up, Fizz and Blitz. Like, whether it was, like, blatant abuse, I wasn't sure, but definitely the idea of, like, they were pit against each other, and they, like, you know, there were probably some really toxic things going on between them that were out of their control, just, like, imposed on them from their environment and, like, how they grew up. And that is still very much true. So I think there's still, like, a lot of truth to our criticisms of before.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. I just think specifically in the relationship sense, especially now that we know that they never formally dated.
Yeah.
That changes a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, God,
That's not for this episode,
no.
But there's a sneak peek of what we're feeling about the new episodes and such. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So, this is also something we know from the Moxie episode, X's and O's.
The Moxie episode.
As we call it. That Blitz and Moxie first met in prison. Mm-hmm. And, like, we see, like, the moment that they meet each other, and Blitz, like, immediately sees something in Moxie, and he starts talking to him, and he's like, hey, you look like a guy who could use a gun. I hope you can, because I need you to do this for me. Yeah. And then he just starts talking his ear off, and he's like, I like this guy. This guy's what I need. I see something in him. Mm-hmm. Before Moxie even said a word. Yeah. And I think that's just such an important part of the dynamic they have now, especially with, like, Moxie wanting to impress him so badly.
Which, let's unpack that.
Let's unpack that. Yeah.
Moxie wanting to impress him. Because we think about it, Moxie's work in the Mafia, I don't know, like, 100% what his actual work was, like, in the field when he was grown. But, like, when he's a kid, he's training with guns. Yeah. And so I presume that was his job. Mm-hmm. Or at least part of it. Yeah. Obviously, there's, like, the heist, and there's different rules, of course. Yes. But, I'm assuming, like, that was his main thing. Mm-hmm. And so that being his main thing for Blitz as well, like, and also Blitz being older than him and, like, in a authority of power. Yeah. That dynamic is extremely similar.
Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it makes you wonder because, like, that heist was the last thing Moxie did with the Mafia. Mm-hmm. And then he went to prison, immediately meets Blitz. We don't know how long they were in prison for, when they leave, whatever. But, like, we can assume that he is, like, working with Blitz from that day on in some capacity. And so that lifestyle of, like, killing and, like, being good with guns, like, that's, like, kind of all he's known for a very long time.
Which is quite interesting because he's just a little guy. He's so sweet.
He's so sweet.
Yeah.
And he loves music. Like, he has other...
Had he not been raised to kill, I don't think he would.
Yeah. And, like, if he hadn't met Blitz, I wonder where he would be now. Like, would he have gone back to the Mafia? Or would he have tried to make his own way doing something completely different? I think it's really interesting to think about. I
think also the concept with... Sorry, hold on, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you're good.
With Moxie is like he's bitchy. He serves. Yeah. We love him.
Oh yeah. Cunty as hell.
But also most of his like aggression and shit is towards Blitz. Mm-hmm. Like he's not as like even when Luna is like outright making fun of him, he doesn't like yell at her. Like there's that scene he like can't physically like insult her. Yeah. And like he's super nice to Millie and like stuff, but he's like he feels the most comfortable, I guess you would probably read it as, being... There's a fly, if you can hear that.
Welcome, our guest star on the podcast, the fly.
Do you have any thoughts on Moxie's trauma and daddy issues?
Fascinating stuff. Thank you.
Anyway,
go on.
Sorry, I'm gonna because of the fly.
Yeah, you're good.
He is only rude to Blitz, and that makes me wonder if that is, like, him trying to keep the power dynamic in check, because, like, with his dad, we know he doesn't talk back, he calls him sir, he's, like, very, like, extremely careful. Yeah. And so, with the dynamic being similar to him and his father, I wonder if, like, is that something that, like, first of all, that just shows how much more comfortable he is with Blitz, and that's, like, a whole thing. Like, that he feels comfortable being like that with Blitz is so important. Yeah. But then also, like, I wonder what that derived from. Like, is Moxie just constantly testing the waters to make sure that this is still, like, a safe situation to be in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. He's very much, like, towing a line. Like, he calls Blitz sir, and, like, if anyone does anything, like, to piss Blitz off, Moxie will just step up and be like, sorry, sir, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But then, like, he'll also, like, be such an asshole to him.
Yeah.
And it's, there's very clearly hints of that, like, trauma there. And, like, his relationship with his dad is, like, hinted at from the very, very beginning.
Which is crazy.
The
writing is so good.
The writing is so good. But yeah, it's also, there is, like, a comfort there. And this conversation that they have really, like, solidifies that and, like, makes it a lot clearer, I think.
Yeah, and I think this conversation, too, is so formatively important, because it does solidify their relationship, and I think also that, like, that dynamic was happening on Moxie's end for so long that, and it was, like, never addressed. So, like, this was really important for him to say, like, hey, like, I see you.
Yeah.
Like, you're a person on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just someone I'm using. Like,
yeah,
that's major for Moxie.
And then for us as the audience to know how they met and, like, how Blitz has always seen him and, like, known what he's capable of, it's just so impactful.
Yeah.
It's so fucking cool.
I think also, going into the concept of this being, like, a show about Blitz and his life and his relationships, this episode is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's, like, I need to, like, gather my thoughts better on, like, the build-up, because, like, we're coming up to the apology episode, too, which I think will talk on this whole arc. But it seems like there's, like, a very intentional direction of Blitz's, like, repairing relationships and learning about his life and, like, recovering from trauma.
Yeah.
And this, I feel like, is a huge stepping stone of it. I just can't, like, place it in the big picture yet, but that when I watch this episode, that's something I think of every time.
Yeah. 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 And that's sort of a good segue into the next point, if you want to take that.
Yeah. So, okay.
It's a lot, sorry.
Yeah, no, this also, I said this to Audie once, and he was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Why the fuck would you say that?
He was so upset. But okay, I'm just gonna read it, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Blitz has a fear of people leaving him, so he gives them the opportunity and or makes it so they have to be around him while acting like he doesn't like them / doesn't care about them. And he does this with Moxie, with his job. So, like, deep down he loves him as a friend and wants to be close but fears intimacy too much, so he pushes him away and, like, tries to hurt him in things. But also he's giving him that job security, and so he has to stay around. And in that vein, they do that with all of IMP. Yeah. I just think he's a little nicer to Millie than he is Moxie. But it's kind of like keeping them at an arm's reach. Like, they physically can't leave unless, like they're willing to give up major things, which, like, in Moxie's case, he's not. Even though he does at one point get going in that direction. But, it's fascinating, the way that he interacts with people. And I don't know if it's a conscious thing, either. Yeah.
Though it is sort of, like, in his bad trip sequence, it's very much addressed, like, by his subconscious. Like, the whole, like Moxie in Blitz's bad trip being, like, you fear intimacy, but crave it as well. Like, I feel like that really sums it up.
Which, same bestie.
Same bestie, yeah. And, yeah, on the note of him being, like, nicer to Millie, and also to Luna, but, like, that's his daughter, like, that makes sense. But now that I think about it, Moxie, of, like, the three of them, Millie, Moxie, and Luna, Moxie's really the only one who regularly challenges Blitz and his authority, which I think is interesting, because I think, like, Moxie is always the first one, and often the only one, to be like, hey, that's stupid. Or, like, are you sure? Like, is there something better we can do, sir? Maybe you should take an art class.
Maybe you should see how expensive they are.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know, it's just an interesting layer to the whole interesting dynamic they already have.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Fascinating.
something. Yeah. Fascinating.
I think also it's in, like, the way that he's being challenged by each person, and, like, Moxie's way is much different. I think that he is a little intimidated by Moxie, because Moxie has a stable relationship. Moxie I wouldn't say Moxie feels comfortable in himself, but Blitz might see him as feeling comfortable in himself.
Yeah.
And he's smart. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's obvious, like, we see those parallels a lot, like, with Blitz, like, being, like, even, like, especially in Bad Trip, like, being envious of his like, knowledge and his brain.
Yeah.
Intelligence, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
But Luna does challenge him a lot, but in, like, a teenager, angsty, child kind of way.
Yeah.
Millie doesn't. Millie sucks up to him, which that's a whole other can of worms, which I don't know if you discussed that in your women episode.
I don't know if I did. Yeah, it's interesting. We can get into that at some point.
But I think the way that Moxie challenged, like, Moxie is the only one that Blitz actually feels threatened by. Mm-hmm. And so that's why this dynamic. And then also, on that regard, like, obviously Moxie, given the dynamic and given his trauma, also feels threatened by Blitz and feels the need to keep a sense of control over the entire situation.
Yeah.
And the dynamic. Like, he feels if he isn't rude back and stuff, then he's going to lose the ability to be rude back, just like he doesn't have with his dad. But then Blitz's side is, like, he probably thinks that Moxie's better than him. Mm-hmm. And so he can't let anyone think that he thinks that, I guess.
Yeah. I have two things. One, I wonder how long it took for Moxie to start being a little bitch to Blitz.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I want to know how long they've known each other, period. Like, how long ago that prison scene was. But I don't know. I want to know at what point, like, if there was an abrupt switch. Like, Moxie was probably just super grateful to him at first.
Yeah.
Like, didn't want to say a thing about him. But then Blitz was probably just continually pissing him off until one day Moxie was just like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. And then just hasn't looked back since.
I would be so willing to bet, too, that, like, Blitz, like, regularly was, like, drilling into him, and then one time Blitz is like, why the fuck don't you talk back to me?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
And then, like, gets mad at him for not talking back, so then Moxie starts talking back, and then Moxie's like, wait, this feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Or especially, like, when they're trying to get IMP off the ground, if Moxie's, like, the first employee, really, because, I mean, Luna's an employee, and we know that when they meet in prison, Blitz already has her as a daughter. Like, he mentions having a daughter at home. So, like, maybe she's technically the first IMP employee, but, like, she doesn't really give a shit also.
Yeah.
So for Moxie to, like, come into this new business, and he's just like, this is not working, and, like, he just goes with it at first, and then Blitz is like, man, why are we not, like, getting any clients? And then Moxie's like, alright, you're stupid.
No, yeah.
Let me do this.
I agree, that's canon.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was gonna say is, I think one thing the show does really well that's evident with both Blitz and Moxie and Blitz and Stolas is, like, the, like, miscommunication between people, or, like, lack of communication. Because a lot of times when media has, like, you know, significant miscommunication between characters, it's just like, oh my god, just fucking talk to each other.
Yeah.
And, like, it's genuinely frustrating to the point where it's like, this could all be solved so easily. But this show does it really well, where you still feel that frustration, but also you totally get it.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense.
These characters are so complex and so real.
Yeah.
That it's like you said, like, you get it.
Yeah, it's not just, like, a matter of, like, oh my god, just tell him this and then problem solved. It's a matter of, like, well, no, Blitz can't tell Stolas that he feels like this because he doesn't understand that Stolas feels like this, and it's same with the Blitz and Moxie dynamic.
Yeah.
Especially with Blitz and Moxie having such similar trauma that has also yet to be fully
Which also, that whole concept is so fascinating, seeing how they have, like, pretty similar trauma, and how it's manifested so differently, but also so similarly.
Yeah.
Is, like, the concept of trauma in this fucking web series makes me crazy.
So good. And I think this is a bit of a tangent, but I just kind of made the connection. I think why Unhappy Campers doesn't work very well because we'll get to that. It's just a bit underwhelming, I'd say. The whole, like, Moxie and Millie conflict. Like, upon rewatching it, it was better than the first time. But I think that's an example of, like, miscommunication that isn't really executed super well. Like, they have been married for over a year at that point. They should kind of, like, know each other.
Yeah.
In that way, I feel. And I think it was a thing where the conflict got big just for the purposes of, like, you know, the episode, but it didn't feel fully realistic for them.
It didn't, especially, like, when they were hitting, like, issues that are so fundamental to them as people that, like, we can see them. Yeah. And, like, everyone else can see them. Like, well, probably, and especially where we know that there's such a, well, to our knowledge, there's such a healthy, like, strong relationship. Yeah. How I think that realistically would have gone was, like, Millie maybe letting him try to figure it out a little bit at first, but then, like, they would address it. Like, they would know exactly what's wrong with each, like, they wouldn't be like, what's wrong? Like, the whole time. Like, they would have been like, Moxie, I can see that, like, you are, like, really trying really hard to do this, and you're frustrated because of this. And then Moxie would be able to look at Millie and be like, I see that, like, you're really enjoying the spotlight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, these are fundamental issues to them as people. And so they would be able to address them, I feel. And they probably have addressed them in the past. So them not seeing them is wild. Also, we are in a pipeline, like, of plot, and that Millie and Moxie aren't really a part of, which isn't great. But, like, in the series, sometimes, like, a main plot happens, and just throwing a minor plot in the middle of it with completely different characters doesn't work. If it happens alongside it, that's one thing. Yeah. But just, it
doesn't really mesh with the other more important stuff going on. Like, the fact that, like, the whole Blitz and Barbie Wire thing is treated as, like, the B plot of that episode. Yeah, exactly. When that's what we were more interested in. And then for the Millie and Moxie to be, like, a little out of character, it's not very strong. Yeah.
I think if that was a really good way of putting it, I think if the A and the B plot were flopped, it would have worked perfectly.
Yeah. And honestly, we can get to that when we get to Unhappy Campers. Yeah. It's just, like, the way the whole thing with Millie was done, about, like, her, like, wanting the spotlight and like, enjoying the spotlight and how she doesn't usually get to feel important. I think that was a cool thing they could have done. Especially, like, it's addressing how, like, within the meta of the show, like, Millie doesn't get the spotlight as a character. And, you know, in that sense, it's almost like addressing the issue to the fans. Like, like, we hear you, we are gonna do more with her. Like, you know, it kind of has that double meaning. And it feels like, with, like, the mischaracterization and with, like, Moxie making it about him, in that sense, it's the show continuing to make all of Millie's issues about Moxie. Yeah. And it's just, we'll get into that. Yeah.
Also, I won't get into this right now. I just want to note it. Something that's really interesting to me about that is the choice to put them in drag. Like, like, obviously it's, like, fun and, like, it's very in character for Moxie to overthink it and need, like, that makes sense. Yeah. But making the episode about Millie finding the spotlight and all of that when she's dressed as a man,
when she's being perceived as a guy,
and then having Moxie fail because he's being perceived as a woman it's
such a choice. And I feel like they could have done something with the whole, like, people only acknowledge that, like, Millie exists and is talented when she's perceived as a man. They could have done something cool with that about like sexism and misogyny, but they just did not. I was gonna say
like it is a really good concept if executed well, but if not executed well, it's a really horrible. It's a really
horrible concept. Yeah.
But we'll get into that more. Yes. But like, so I guess we do have a lot of thoughts on Happy Campers. Yeah. But that will be its own episode. probably not a two-parter, though.
Can I do the next bullet?
Yeah, I moved it up for you, yeah.
Lovely. So back to Truth Seekers. I'd say the star of the Blitz and Moxie conversation is when after, like, you know, Blitz is like, and don't expect any more compliments, I'm maxed out. And then Moxie goes, thank you, sir. To which Blitz very quickly replies, you know my name, use it. And then Moxie goes, thanks, Blitz. So fucking good.
Yeah.
I remember, because I've probably said this before on the podcast, but Truth Seekers, when I was watching the show for the first time, Truth Seekers was the first episode where I fully realized, like, oh, this show's, like, good.
Yeah.
Like, there are really smart, good writing decisions happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And that line made me lose my freaking shit.
Do you want to tell the podcast your reaction to the line about Moxie getting pegged?
I probably said this when we got there. I don't remember, but yeah, I was, like, pacing around my room and about, like, you know, when Moxie admitted to getting pegged, because like, a few episodes prior, when Blitz was like, oh, she definitely pegs you, I thought that was so funny. Yeah. And then when it was revealed that she actually canonically does peg Moxie, I, like, laid down on the floor, but then I accidentally whacked my head really hard. Yeah. And, I wasn't actually hurt, but in the moment, I was like, if I just got a concussion from that, that would be the funniest fucking thing on the planet.
Were you also going, he gets pegged to your roommate?
Yes, I was.
I don't know if we've name dropped her on the podcast, that's why.
We probably have.
Yeah.
But yeah. But then also, like, that line's so impactful, and then Moxie just continues to, like, almost exclusively refer to Blitz as Sir.
Yeah.
Even in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny.
Like, we thought we had a moment.
Yeah. You can't unlearn your trauma that quickly.
Yeah, but it's funny.
It's so funny. Yeah.
The yes sir dynamic in the fight scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fight scene, we'll get to the fight scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's at that moment that Millie drops in.
There's my Millie.
They're just so cute.
He literally, like, cries.
Yeah, he kicks his little feet. He's like, there's my Millie.
Oh.
They're so cute.
Also, in the notes, I want to just say that this is in all capitals. There's my Millie. Ooey, 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 Eminem, heart.
Heart, yeah. Yeah, and then I think we skip ahead a little bit after that, to the fight scene.
Yes. I think maybe we should do this part of the fight scene, like the fundamentals of it, and then the character stuff.
Yeah. We were talking about the animation a bit earlier. And the like fight choreo is really fun.
Yeah, the fight choreo and, like, the animation of the characters, I think, is pretty good. Like, not great, but, like, better than a lot of the prior episodes. Yeah. But the background in this episode is so bad.
The color palette is just not great. It feels like when... It's like the thing that live-action movies... They do this so often these days, where it's, like, they're in the dark, so then, like, when you're watching the movie, you can barely fucking see what's going on. Yeah. And it's like, hey, this is a movie we want to fucking see. Yeah. Except this is animation. Yeah. And it's like... I don't know. This is, like, an earlier episode in the show. Like, I can't think of an instance after this where it was notably ugly.
Yeah, I can't think so either. And also, again, it's, like, the characters are what you're focusing on, so it's not a huge thing, but it is just a little bit of, like, a ick in the back. Yeah. But again, it was early, and it's an independent animator, so, like...
Yeah, we're not, like, shitting on the animators or the team in any way.
It's just something to note, just because of, like... Even from this to X's and O's, the fight scene, completely different, so much smoother, the background's so much better, the actual execution and, like, fundamentals, because, like, this fight scene's great, but it's really long, like, you're kind of sat there being like, okay.
It is.
Reminds me of a Marvel movie.
Yeah, but it does, like, focus on each individual character, which is very
what
cool.
I was gonna say.
And we also noticed upon this, like, most recent rewatch that each character has their own specific, like, musical motif that happens when they're fighting. And, like, when they're on screen, and it's so freaking cool.
Yeah, which, it's a really cool concept, and I think what happened is they tried to take a bunch of moving parts and put them into one scene, and that's why it's so long and feels dragged out. Yeah. But I also do respect all the choices, because they're really cool choices.
Yeah, they're really cool. I think, honestly, if the like, the background animation was more visually pleasing, it wouldn't be as noticeable.
Yeah.
But because it's just a little bit ugly, like, you kind of, like, space out a little bit. But it is, like, the character choices being made are really cool. And it's a very pivotal moment for them as a team, I feel.
I think it is, like, the most, if, like, this might be a bold statement, but I think it is, like, team-wise and individual character-wise, like, for one scene, I think it is the most pivotal scene for them, because we get a bit of each character and how they work as a team.
Yeah, and I think, is that still the only fight scene we have with all 4 of them?
I think so.
Yeah, at least, like, working together that closely.
Yeah, because I think the main thing is we just don't usually have Luna there.
Yeah, yeah, but even, like, Blitz, Millie, and Moxie doesn't happen super duper often.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and it is mostly done well. It's just a little long, a little ugly.
Yeah, but for an early episode, not bad.
No, not bad.
Also, just like not only do we see, like, characters and who they are, but also how they interact with each other. Like, Blitz and Moxie's dynamic versus Blitz and Millie's dynamic was so intriguing.
Yeah, like, Blitz comes over to Millie and he's like, you need anything, Mills? And she's like, nope. And then he's like, you want some water? She's like, oh, okay, sure.
Takes a little sip and then cracks the neck.
Yeah. And then Blitz and Luna, he's like, I'm so proud of you. And she's like, oh my god, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah. And I think also, again, going back to, like, the show being about Blitz and his relationships, like, that's really, like, throughout this entire episode, that's really radiant.
Yes.
But then, do you want to take the one about...
the line at the top?
Or, no, sorry, I was trying to, I think we talked about it a little bit, actually. But Moxie and Blitz's dynamic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like...
Because that sequence with the guns is so fucking cool.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When they're, like, back-to-back and, like, shooting motherfuckers and it's, like, spinning around them, that slays so fucking hard.
And the, like, cover me, Mox. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think you wrote that line about how it gives you...
Mafia vibes.
Mafia vibes.
It does.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And then also when they get... like, when Moxie's just, like, shooting fucking everyone and going, bitches!
Yeah. And it reminds me of when Fizz takes Blitz and uses Hell as a weapon. Goes, fuck, yeah, no.
Yeah. Oh, fuck you, fuck you. Yeah.
Same energy.
But then Blitz appears next to Moxie, and Moxie immediately, like, drops his gun, and he's like, oh, shit, what?
Yeah.
Which is just so
What did I write? I said fucking something like, this scary, not scary. Where did I write that?
The trauma response.
Oh, yeah.
Wee, poor baby.
People attacking him, not scary. An authority figure quickly being near him, terrifying. TBH, real as hell.
Real as fuck, yeah. And then, backtracking a moment, because we
gotta talk about that.
Yeah, like, right before the fight scene, when Blitz is like, I've had one too many emotions today, let's fuck these fuckers up!
Can we talk about Brandon Rogers' delivery on that?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've had one too many emotions today, guys, let's fuck these fuckers up!
Yeah.
And then also, who wants some quality time with Daddy? And then he just kills everyone.
Yeah. The emotion in the, like, I've had too many emotions today, like, there's, like, genuine, like, his, like, voice kind of breaks when he says that line, and Moxie looks at him, he's like, whoa.
Yeah, his ass is breaking down in this episode, which mood.
Yeah, and, like, nothing's even fucking happened yet compared to what's gonna come after this episode.
That's true, but, like, I mean, the bad trip, I think, was the main traumatizing event of this.
Yes. Yeah. I was debating saying this, but that line and then the quality time with Daddy line, I'm not often attracted to Blitz's voice. In fact, it very rarely happens. But Brandon Rogers did kind of do something with those two lines, and I would just like to acknowledge that.
He put sex in them.
Yeah. Fly, do you have anything to add on the subject?
He's twiddling his little legs.
I want to fuck Blitz. So true. Yeah, and I think that's everything on the fight sequence. Oh, Millie slays. They all slay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think specifically we were talking about Millie with her, like, swinging in a circle and just killing, like, 6 fucking bitches. That part.
Yeah.
Slayed.
Also, the differences in all of their, like, specialties is really cool.
And very prevalent in the scene.
Yeah. Does Luna have a weapon? or does she just, like, bite people?
I don't remember. It's been we did just watch it, but it's been a hot minute since we, like, analyzed.
Yeah. Yeah. We also, it took us forever to get through our rewatch, so, like, Truth Seekers was, like, 2 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah. Because, like, Truth Seekers, I think we paused a few times, but not a bunch.
Yeah.
Like, we got through season 1 pretty quickly, but then season 2, especially since we hadn't taken any notes on Western Energy and On.
Yes.
It took, like, 2 weeks just for those.
Yeah, it took fucking ages.
Also, we're just so busy.
Yeah. But yeah, so pivot to the Stolas sequence, I believe, which is so fucking cool.
There was half the animation budget went to the bad trip, half of it went here.
Yeah.
I will, like, put this in half speed sometimes and watch it, because I'm just like,
it's so
cool.
good. And it's so spooky.
Yeah.
It's like...
Also, I was gonna, like, this is, like, other than, like, the sex stuff, like, there's been times I have, like, there's younger family members that are, like, young teens that I want to share this thing with, and I'm like, it's not that scary. And then I watch this episode and I'm like, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I think my sister would really like this show.
Yeah.
And I've been debating the ethics of showing it to her because she's only 11.
Yeah.
But, like, middle schoolers know about sex.
Yeah. Also, the children I work with at my program that are, like, 8 know what the stickers on my water bottle mean, so...
Yeah. But yeah, I think this scene would freak her out more than she'd like to admit at her 11 years of age. But yeah, it's done especially the part with the I don't know their names, but the one of the agents, the woman.
Yeah, their names are 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
Yeah.
Do you know which one she is?
I think she's 2.
I think she's 2. Well, when Agent 2's head is, like, shaking back and forth, and there's, like, that, like...
And then it goes...
Yeah, but there's, like, that musical, like, brrr, that plays over, and, like... It just, and then, yeah, it's so...
Also, when he says, what? Never seen a real demon before.
Yeah. Stolas also so fuckable in this scene. If we're
okay,
I'm just gonna say it.
But, Audie, I know you're not usually attracted to Blitz, but you can't look at me in the eyes and tell me that you're not usually attracted to Stolas.
It's not even that I'm usually attracted to him, it's just that I so would.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, like, physical attraction... like, consistently. It's just the fact that I would have sex with that owl.
Yeah, real. So that's what I'm saying, is that's not saying much.
No, it's really not. But, like, he's hot in this scene. And I think we don't talk about that enough.
You really like when people are in danger. And, like, being scary.
So, it's... moving on. Yeah, also, Luna is recording the whole thing on her phone.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Which is so funny.
She says, deep,
deep, deep, on her Instagram.
That definitely went on her story.
Yeah. And then Blitz's gay-ass expression, so real of him.
Yeah.
As I just said, would also fuck Stolas in this scene.
But also the, like, realizing that Stolas wants to protect him and actually cares about him is such a thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is such great lengths that Stolas is going to, like, obviously, Stolas is liking a little bit. He loves putting on a show.
Oh, yeah.
But, like...
Theater nerd.
But, like, still.
This is not related, but Moxie and Stolas should get to sing together at some point. I don't know what the context would be.
They do a little shadow cast of something
They
together.
would have such a fucking blast putting on a little theater performance.
Stolas and Moxie just need to be friends.
They do. I need them to interact more because they would get each other on such a fundamental level.
Yeah. And then I want more Millie and Blitz too.
Yeah.
So it would be perfect.
Yeah.
Double dates.
Yeah.
But the next thing, this line, when he says fucking impish little plaything, it makes me physically ill every time. I hate it.
Yeah.
My impish little... Who dared something? My impish little plaything.
Yeah, who dared threaten or... Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like what Stryker said about him being Stolas' plaything in the episode right before this one, which is done so deliberately, and it's so good, and I hate it.
Yes, and it's done right before this, like the episode right before this one, and then also with the imagery in the bad trip sequence with Stolas, like, it's just...
Yeah. I think we're really gonna get into, like, the classism and stuff in Western Energy is when we have a lot to say about it. But Stolas has internalized classism for sure.
Out the wazoo.
Out the wazoo. And it's so, like, it's like, I lost my words. I don't know. It's, he has internalized classism out the wazoo, and it really validates a lot of Blitz's fears, which, going back to why the miscommunication works so well, like, Blitz isn't entirely wrong about a lot of his fears.
Yeah. And, like, as someone who has a lot of trauma and horrible self-esteem, Blitz kid moment, I feel like he'll, like, if he fears something, even if he fears a shit ton of things, and a lot of them are proven wrong, if he fears one big thing and it's proven right, he's like, okay, all my anxiety is correct.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then in that vein, Blitz needs to tell Stolas.
Yeah.
But again, miscommunication / lack of communication done so well. Like, I wouldn't tell Stolas if I was Blitz.
Real.
He needs to, and they need to have, like, a conversation, but it makes so much sense that they haven't yet.
Yeah.
And it annoys me so much on Tumblr, because there are so many, like, Helluva Boss, like, antis and, like, criticizers, which, all for criticism, for sure.
Yeah.
But the one criticism that really bothers me is when people are like, Stolas and Blitz, like, just need to, like, talk about this thing, or, like, you know, why aren't they talking about this one thing? It would fix everything. We're supposed to, like, root for their relationship when they're not talking about the thing, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
you are supposed to. It's dragged out for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
It is interesting.
And we've talked about this before, but I do wonder in, like, the overall arc of the show, which we know is going to be 4 seasons total. That's the number, right? 4?
Yes.
4 seasons. I wonder where, like, at what point in that overall run of the show, at what point Blitz and Stolas are going to get together, assuming they do. Like, is that
I feel like they will.
I feel like they will, but is it gonna, like, not officially happen until the very end of the show? Is it gonna... I don't know.
I think that, again, I think the theme of this show is Blitz working through his trauma. Like, if I had to pick, like, what they're trying to follow, like, as the start and the end, it's him working through his trauma. And so that's not going to happen until he's worked through everything to be able to have that conversation. Yeah. Which I think we're getting towards with all the Fizz stuff. And I think that's why Fizz has been so prevalent. Yeah. But...
And the next episode is the full moon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's making me crazy. Because the full moon, that has to be about Stolas and Blitz. And then also, we haven't had an episode where they interact.
Since...
Because they didn't interact in Western Energy.
When is the last time... Was it Seeing Stars?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And before that, it was Aussies.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, and when people, like, criticize that, they're like, we're supposed to be rooting for them. They have not interacted in, like, 5 million years. Yeah. Like, I get that, but also the not interacting is so important to their relationship at this stage. And, like, so much needs to happen in between now and the next time they talk.
I think, too, also, like, now that Fizz and Blitz are on good terms, and Ozzy is on good terms with Blitz, and then Fizz, like, said, give Stolas the crystals. Yes. Like, are we gonna have... Okay, I feel like there's 2 possibilities. Are we gonna have one where Stolas, like, goes to give him the crystals, and Blitz has to make the decision of, do I tell him my feelings, or do I just take these crystals because he doesn't want me and whatever? But saying that he said his feelings to Fizz, and that wasn't horrible. Like, he might be more inclined. But on the other end, there could be, like, a situation where Blitz just goes to apologize, and Stolas has to make the decision. Yes. Do I give him the crystals? Yeah. So, there's that.
I feel like... I think if it's the first scenario where Blitz has to make the decision. I do not think he's, assuming this is next episode,
Yeah.
I do not think he's at a place where he would tell Stolas how he feels, because I think, like, maybe seeing Fizz and Ozzy and, like, talking to Fizz about Stolas, he's maybe started to realize, like, you know, maybe Stolas does care about me, and, like, I care about him, whatever, but I think if Stolas was like, here, take these crystals, now you don't have to see me anymore, Blitz would just be like, oh, okay, fuck you then, and take the crystals.
I think also, though, he might freak out on him in, like, a fuck you way, but, like, it's him, like, yelling at him and being like, fuck you, I hate you, but under it is, like, him saying, like, you know, I, like, cared about you and all this stuff, like, he'll say that in an angry way, and then Stolas will come in and be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
But
I just don't know that they're there yet.
I don't think they're there yet, but I think that the crystals are gonna be the moving point.
Yes, for sure. I also think it's very much a possibility that, like, from talking to Fizz, maybe even, like, having, like, an actual, like, proper conversation with Fizz about this, where, because now Blitz knows for certain that Fizz and Ozzy are dating, and they're like public, like that's a thing now. I think with that whole thing, he might be more like, hey, so like, how'd you know that Ozzy liked you back? And then Fizz is gonna be like, dude, you're gonna go tell Stolas how you feel, and then he like pumps Blitz up, and Blitz is like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and then he goes to talk to Stolas, and Stolas is like, oh, hang on a moment, here, crystals, and then Blitz goes, oh, and just fully breaks.
I was also gonna say, like, if he goes, because I could totally see Fizz pumping him up, and then he goes and does it, and he doesn't do it, I could totally see Fizz being like, bitch, go back.
Yeah.
And then, like, maybe he takes the crystals, but then in, like, a week or so, he goes back and he says Stolas.
Yeah.
Like, he writes it down or some shit.
Especially because, if Blitz, like, he goes to tell Stolas, like, how he feels, but then before he can say anything, Stolas is like, take these crystals, and then Blitz is, like, heartbroken and, like, destroyed, and he leaves, and then he probably, like, isolates himself for a hot minute from, like, fucking everyone, and then eventually Fizz is like, dude, like, how'd it go? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then he tells him, but, like, Fizz knows that Ozzy gave Stolas the crystals. I don't know if Fizz knows why Stolas wanted them, but Ozzy, like, Stolas told Ozzy, like, I have feelings for him.
Yeah.
So, like, even if Ozzy were to be like, oh, shit, I fucked them up.
No, it would be so funny, too, because, like, that happens, and then Fizz goes up to Ozzy and is like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
And Ozzy's like, whoa, I forgot. Because
Yeah.
Ozzy doesn't, like, he gives them out a little sparingly, but not really.
Yeah.
And so then Ozzy goes and talks to Stolas.
Yes. Oh my god.
I want it to be very convoluted. That'd be really funny.
It's gonna be so funny. When we eventually get there, the Millie, Moxie, Blitz, Stolas, Fizz, Ozzy triple date is gonna go so hard. They go back to Ozzy's.
They all perform.
They all perform. They do love songs. Everyone else is like, what the fuck is this shit? But anyway.
Back to Truth Seekers.
Truth Seekers.
Do you want to talk about the theme? You love the theme?
The theme. Stolas' musical motif.
It's so cool in this episode.
So cool. It's like orchestral and like really intense. Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good.
And something I always have to remind myself, because we've seen this show a bajillion times, so it's easy to forget that, like, up until the circus, we don't know that there are lyrics to the theme.
Yeah.
So, like, getting to the circus and, like, hearing that theme that we've heard so many times before when Stolas is on screen, but then having him sing with it is so impactful.
Yeah.
And, like, now that I already know about that, I forget it sometimes, but, like, in this scene, we still don't know.
Yeah.
We still don't know what this musical motif is going to become.
Yeah, like, what it represents.
And it ends up becoming one of the most powerful songs in the show. Not necessarily one of my favorites, but
it's powerful.
Powerful as fuck.
And it's also an extreme, like, point of the plot.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very big moving piece. Like, it is what motivates the argument with Stella, which then motivates everything in Stolas' life changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after the whole, like,
Sorry.
Stolas part. No, you're good.
I have, like, a bug bite on my stomach.
I wasn't going to tell the podcast, but...
I was.
But then Stolas, goes up and is like, are you hurt? Whatever. And then I was like, what the what the fuck were you thinking or whatever.
Yeah.
What were you...
How the fuck did you get caught by humans? Aren't you little creatures being careful?
And then Stolas grabs Blitz's face.
Yeah.
And Moxie pulls Stolas' hand away. And this part makes me fucking insane every time. Because it's like, first of all, it shows how much Moxie cares about Blitz, because Moxie is an extremely timid person. Mm-hmm. And so Moxie's like, Your Highness and shit like that to Stolas, like, feels he is much superior to him. Like, I think at one point calls him Sir too. And so it's like, he's not comfortable with this person. Yeah. This person is an authority figure, a little scared of him. Yeah. But for him to go up and physically move his hand off of Blitz's face is like so powerful and really, really shows how strongly Moxie feels about Blitz and how much their like inherent need to protect each other is, which now we know is very similar to Blitz and Fizz's dynamic. Yes. Which is fascinating. And yeah. Oh, God, I think also Blitz's lack of reaction to this is interesting as well, because he squirms a little, but he doesn't try to like Blitz fights back, but not in this situation. He doesn't try to take his hand off at all, and it's not in a way like he likes it, like he's visibly uncomfortable. So like, who else has grabbed his face? What other situation has he been in like this?
Probably his dad, first off. Yeah. Which, going back to the whole Moxie and his dad trauma, his dad also grabs his face. Yes. That's something we canonically see. Yeah. So that's a whole thing. But also, with Blitz, like, Blitz being a person who fights back, that's true, but I think it's very consistent with him that, like, he refuses to, like, fight back when other people are, like, watching him. Yeah. Like, earlier in Truth Seekers, like, when they're tied up and talking to the agents, he's just, like, acting all normal, but then as soon as they leave, he's, like, wriggling around, and he's like, and then, I
think that also goes into him, like, acting super tough, too.
Yeah. And I think it's something where, like, in this situation, like, when Stolas is, like, in the moment physically grabbing his face, he's like, okay, whatever, but then afterwards he's like, yeah. And maybe that it has an effect on him.
I think also, too, like, if it does remind him of his dad, like, fighting back was probably the better choice. Or not fighting back. Not fighting back was the better choice. Yeah. And so, like, he might just still inherently have that physical reaction of just stay still. Freeze.
Yeah. I really want to know more about Blitz's relationship with his dad, like, as he got into his teen years, because we only see him when he's, like, like, 7 in the circus, and, like, he's, like, he doesn't fully lie down and take it, like, he's, like, what? No, and he, like, rips his arm out of his dad's hand, and, like, stuff like that, and I can only imagine he starts getting more rebellious in that sense as he gets older, and we know canonically that Fizz would distract his dad so that Blitz could steal his booze. Yeah. But I feel like, as he got older and got more rebellious, there were also probably stronger consequences and more violent consequences from his dad. Yeah. And so that would explain the trauma response of just, okay, don't fight back. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think I also wrote with, like, relationship trauma here, but I don't know if that's relevant anymore, but, like, the freeze is very common with that, too. Yeah. I guess we don't know that he doesn't have relationship trauma from other people. Yeah. But... because
we know... well, him and Fizz weren't together.
It's not the Fizz base like we have it in the notes.
Yeah, so we only know of Verosica, which I don't think that would be that kind of situation. Like, if anything, Blitz, I feel, was the more toxic one.
Yeah. I think it was inherently toxic on both sides, but I don't think it was a situation like that either. Yeah. Also, one thing about the Moxie's reaction that I did want to know is his voice is really deep and serious here, and the only other time we see him say sir like this is to his dad. Yeah. In X's and O's, where he goes, sir. Yeah. Only other time. Yeah. And it's like, it's jarring when he says sir like that in that episode, like when you're watching it and he goes, like, yes, sir. And it's like completely different voice, and you're like, whoa. Yeah. And it's the same voice. It's the same. And so I feel like that's worth noting.
Yeah. What does he say here? He says, like, they caught us off guard, Your Highness. Or does he say sir or
He
Your
says
Highness?
sir.
I can't remember. We'll double check that, but that's so interesting.
I
thought he said Your Highness, but I could be wrong.
I feel like I would have checked it before writing that in the notes. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Sir. Or, like...
I mean, this also could have meant just, like, the tone of when he says
That's
Sir
true.
to Crimson.
But...
Either way, though, yeah, for sure.
The next note is such a shift.
Yeah, hard pivot. Stolas carrying Blitz bridal style.
It's so fascinating.
It's so funny. And Stolas, what Blitz says, like, I'm gonna use those bear traps, or whatever. Which, by the way, what fucking bear traps is he talking about? I feel like we haven't acknowledged that.
Yeah.
Like, the way he says, I'm gonna use those bear traps, meaning specific bear traps that have been used in the past.
They have so many kinks. It's so fucking crazy.
I'm so fascinated by their dynamic. But anyway, when Blitz says that, Stolas, like, literally fucking orgasms.
Yeah.
Creams his fucking jeans. And he's not even wearing jeans.
No, he's fucking naked, isn't he?
He's freaking naked.
He might have his shorts on.
He might have his shorts on. Yeah.
But, no, literally feathers up, like...
Yeah. Oh!
Please do.
Oh, yes, please.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think we just needed to know, like, all the things we learned that Stolas can, in fact, do. Like, I know in Lululand, I think?
Yes.
Where, like, this bitch can do so much shit. But, like, in this, we also learn a lot of other stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, he can possibly sense when Blitz is in danger.
Yeah.
Enter the human world without a portal.
Yeah. Not one that we see, at least.
Yeah. Possess people, which I feel like is so worth noting.
Yeah.
Force people to draw his symbol.
The sigil thing.
Yeah, in the note this says, Audie, what is this called? Please help. And to summon him.
So is that how he got there, or was that just for, like, dramatic effect?
I would like to think it's how he got there, but honestly, it might just be for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
Also, I leaned away, so I hope they could hear that.
Yeah, because, like, he was already, like, present in the sense... Like, he was already possessing Agent 2 when the others were drawing the sigil. Yeah.
Maybe it's so he can physically form, because he was in, like, a kind of, like, not a physical solid state, I guess.